I would push people just take little risk. As kids, we're all naturally curious.
The very most successful people read the most books and ask the most questions. Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. I'm Brad Rhodes.
And I'm Marilyn Rhodes. We're here to help you build a marriage that's stronger, more connected, and full of grace.
I'm Rick Dayton, joining Brad and Marilyn as we bring you weekly conversations designed to inspire and equip you to live intentionally in your marriage.
We'll share practical tips, powerful stories, and strategies to help you and your spouse grow closer and thrive together.
So whether you're just starting out or have been married for years, there's always room to grow. Let's do this together. This is the Grace Marriage Podcast.
Welcome to the Grace Marriage Podcast. We have the privilege of speaking with an amazing pastor, church planner, speaker, storyteller, and illusionist. At least that's what Google seems to tell me, Drew. We have Drew Worsham, and welcome to the podcast.
Brad, thanks so much for having me. I have loved y'all's ministry from afar for a while and love the book, so I feel super honored to be on here.
Well, I have heard amazing things from my administrator who's been to several of your performances, and then my director of operations got to know you. Just been talking for 45 minutes before we jumped on it. And we got a lot in common, man.
Yes.
So I just want to start out, tell me about yourself and your ministry. Why don't you tell our audience kind of, how's God brought you where you are and what do you do?
Yeah. Oh gosh. It's trying to think of the simplest answer. So, right out of, or I guess during college, started traveling as a touring artist, specifically in the world of magic and illusions, and did that or done, I guess, really for the last 20 years. And then along the way, as I started getting more serious about my faith, we ended up planting a church in Washington State, and was a part of creating a network of church plants all throughout the Pacific Northwest. I think in my 11 years there, we planted roughly 15 churches, and then moved to San Antonio and came on staff at a church here. And just had opportunities to still get to perform and getting to speak or preach, depending if it's Christian-based or a lot of corporate events that I'll do. And and then, I guess that's it. There's a lot.
I'm going to dive right in, because one thing I found fascinating is you call curiosity, saying it's a skill. Why would you say curiosity is a skill, and how do you develop it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a natural skill, in many ways, like breathing. You got to think, as kids, we're all naturally curious. And so I talk about often that, curiosity is, it pushes us as little kids to, we're born detectives and explorers and little scientists. And I don't know if many people know this, but the average 4-year-old asks 300 questions a day. And I live with one of them. And so I can verify that as true. We're curious about the world. And then I think something happens to us along the way. And whether I have lots of thoughts on, whether that's technology or it's our environments that we're raised in. But that 4-year-old, by the time they get to middle school, the number of questions that they ask usually drops to about 0. And Kip Thorne, who was an inspiration for the movie Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, he said that we're all born curious about the universe. And if we're not, he says it means it was beaten out of us by life. And so I kind of look at it as hey, there's this skill that we all kind of naturally have, but we've lost it. And then with practice, we can regain it. But it does take it takes intentionality.
How do you practice it? Because I see a lot of fatigued, bored people that go to work and they say, tell me, I got 5 more years to retirement. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's 3,000 plus days that you just have to endure through to hope that it's better then. And that to me, sounds awful. So how do people with the grind cultivate the curiosity and get good at it again?
Uh, at like a 30,000 foot level, I would say that maybe three, if I could boil it down to three things. I would say that if you can learn to change your perspective, that's like one, like with me doing coaching, it's one thing like I will try to help people go, okay, like let's look at this from a different angle. If you think about even curiosity when it comes in your marriage, um, so often we only see it through our lens. We get so fixated on like, well, I don't feel like my wife loves or respects me enough, or she doesn't, whatever. But if you can shift your perspective and start to be curious about what is it like on their end, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to be on your side of leadership, or even with creativity? Like, how do I change my perspective on this, to look at it from a different angle? So that's one thing like that I push people go, hey, let's stop. Let's kind of get curious. Let's kind of shift it and look at it from a different angle. And another really practical thing is learning to just ask better questions. Like, um, I think a lot of times in our relationships, we're not, I I think we get it wrong. I think somehow we're taught that the key to like a relationship thriving is being interesting. So the more interesting, the more stories I can tell you about me, give you all my accolades, then you'll be more impressed. But relationships like thrive when we're curious about one another by asking questions. And so I push it. I go, hey, instead of seeking to be interesting, choose to be interested. Like by going,
It's
okay,
so
like
good.
tell me more about that, and being genuine about it. So like learning to ask questions, and this could even be like, gosh, and you know this better than I do, but you know, in the world of counseling, a counselor just asks good questions. Like, tell me more about that. And so, even about with ourselves, to go, okay, I'm feeling something right now. Where is that feeling coming from? What's the thing behind the thing, that's causing it? So, asking bigger questions, being curious about that on a personal side, relational side, and creativity. So, yeah, change perspective, ask questions. And then the third thing, I would push people just take little risk. Like take little bitty risk. One of my favorites, that I've built up over time in my own life is to the point where my wife is probably a little annoyed by it. I'll be honest, and my friends as well. If we go to any restaurant, especially as I travel, any coffee shop, I can't help but look at that barista or that waiter and go, "Hey, what's the thing that y'all are the most proud of? Like, is there a coffee drink that's like unique to you guys?" And sometimes it's weird. And I go, "Oh, I have to try that." Like, I don't, because I may never get this chance again. And so it's led to some weird places. Like, I remember being in Korea, and they're like, "Hey, kind of a thing that we're known for is eating live octopus." And I was like, "Oh, well, you had me. I mean, that's gross, but I have to try it." Like, my curiosity is just, it's through the roof at that point. So, and which
And
made a
that's that,
wild story.
that's so good. And I was reading books lately, and one of the kind of the two things that the very most successful people read the most books and ask the most questions.
Yes.
Like the two marks of your highest level leaders in corporate America and everywhere are literally the people that are curious and learn the most and then ask questions. There's one like top level leader who was like worth billions. And they said we had lunch with entrepreneurs and all he did was ask all their questions. What was your key to success? Tell me this, tell me this. And then he was like a sponge of information. Then he goes, oh, this is why he's a billionaire. Now, not that we do it for that reason, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that that God really, and you're loved when people ask you questions because what's that show? They care about you. And
Yes.
so it's not only just being interested, but it's also that's wouldn't you agree? That's kind of that is the expression of love.
Oh my gosh. Well, you think about, your first date with your wife, and the curiosity is through the roof. You care about the smallest thing, from, her favorite color to her favorite band, and you just soak it up. It's like that curiosity, and it's what forms that bond. And then what's sad And you know this better than most, that a lot of times 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we stop being curious about the person that we're married with. And then you hear language like, "Ah, we drifted apart," or, they feel like they just don't care anymore. And I think a lot of it's because we just lost our curiosity, which I
Yeah.
believe we can get back.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating because, and then why did I think Marilyn was so fascinating when we were dating? Because I was asking her so many questions, and the more I got to know her, she was such a unique, cool, creative, beautiful. I was like, oh, I can't believe she exists.
Yes.
You know, but then you get married. I start building a law practice, start doing this, stop answering questions. Within 6 months, she can't stand the sight of me. It's weird. The power of being interested in somebody, but then also the devastation of not showing interest in marriage.
Dang. Yeah. So well put. It's, yeah, we fill the journey with all of these assumptions. Like, we're like, I already know, about my wife. I already know. But she's evolving constantly, and um, my wife is not the same person that I married all those years ago. She's a totally different person. So my curiosity is so important. And yeah, I love that when the pain when someone just chooses willingly or accidentally to just not be interested.
Yeah, look
Interesting.
at in First Peter 3 says, live with your wife in an understanding way. So basically, that is a call to curiosity. Because how do you understand? You're curious, you ask questions. So basically, that passage in First Peter is kind of a command to husbands. And basically says if you don't live with an understanding way, even your very prayers will be hindered. Basically, if you're not curious about your bride, I won't listen to your prayers. It's almost like interesting. God's interest in our prayers is almost tied to our interest in our brides.
What, bro? I'm gonna go from this moment and need to just sit with. That's so good. There is a sermon, a talk, maybe a whole book that you need to write, Brad, on that.
You're the curiosity guy, man. You write the book. You write the book, and I'll tell people to buy
We can write it together.
it.
That's
Yeah,
so good. Seriously, so good.
but
Never thought
my
about
men, but Drew, to illustrate what you're saying, my mentor who went on to be with Jesus, I'd never felt loved by anybody outside really like he loved me. But I've never had somebody like he cared. Like I'm stressed. Brad, why are you stressed, man? What's going on? What's going okay, okay, okay. And it was just like a weird feeling because he would just sit with me and ask me questions and get into it. And I was like, I didn't even know what was happening, man. But then I was so drawn to him and I didn't know why. But as we're talking, the reason why is because he cared so much about me.
it. Yes. Yes. Same thing. Like, the men that I feel like invested in my life the most, like had the greatest impact, were not the people that just shared their little nuggets of wisdom, but that just sat and asked and walked with me and were curious. Yeah, just curious. Their curiosity and their care is what I think had the biggest impact on my life.
What role do you think insecurity and pride play in not being as curious, but more being interested in just sharing about yourself and your own opinions?
Oh gosh, yeah, for sure. I think the moment I'm kind of processing this in real time, but pride, it just causes us to become so myopic, and it's just about our eyes get so centered on us. And insecurity is just the same side of that, same coin. Like, we feel insecure, and so then our eyes just get fixated on us, and so then we just start talking about ourselves. But when we're walking, and we all know that, we see that person that, at the party that, we meet, and then all of a sudden they just don't stop talking about themselves. And you see it, you feel it. You're like, oh my gosh, this person is so insecure and they're needing people's validation. And versus the person that it's walking in security, they know who they are, then they're now freed up to be so curious and just get to sit and go ask questions because I have nothing to prove. It's I'll give you a quick example. I have so many friends in Nashville, and it's the music capital of the US. And there's so many people go there to make it, especially in country music. And we joke, and hopefully this doesn't hurt anybody's feelings or get me canceled, but we joke about when you meet someone in the music industry, you can tell within 30 seconds whether or not they're a professional or they're hoping to be a professional. And the hoping to be professional and to make it one day, all they talk about is their career, the people that they've met, the things that they're doing, hey, the shows that they're going to be doing. But when you meet a professional, you will never hear them talk about their musical career. They'll just sit and talk and want to hear more about you. And so
That's
you can see it within seconds.
it's and in ministry, you can tell within 5 minutes whether somebody's more mission based or more trying to kind of advance their own deal. It's like, it doesn't take any time at all, and it's fascinating, and and the problem is we don't see it. Like early in our marriage, you're describing me at a large degree. I didn't realize it. I mean, I'm extrovert and I'm a talker. So, I mean, I was revealing things I didn't even know were there. And one time we were at dinner and I was doing this with a group of people. And sometimes the problem is it's entertaining to people, even though it's unimpressive. So Marilyn reaches under the table and squeezes my leg. Basically, he's telling me, "Would you please shut up? It's embarrassing." And I moved my chair away from her, Drew, so she couldn't reach my leg. And then I kept talking.
My gosh.
So I say that the reason I share that is for folks that, you're thinking, oh my goodness, I talk about myself. I try to impress people. I try to share things about my job and what I do to make me feel significant. There's no condemnation in Christ. Just stop, shift from self-interest to others' interest, accept his grace, move forward, and have deeper relationships. We're not stuck. We can change.
Yes. But I am so curious how that story ended uh, with your wife.
She was mad, we got in the car and, it's like, I was mad at her. She was mad at me. I thought I had a disrespectful wife. She thought she had a butthead of a husband that not only talks too much, but won't listen, so yeah, we were at that point of our marriage, Drew, where things weren't really resolvable, because, like we were at a point, I mean, God later broke Marilyn and broke me and, transformed our marriage. And that's how Grace Marriage came about. But it was, but the interesting thing is that's what what you're saying is so profound, because the reason everybody's drawn to my wife, she is great at asking questions and you can physically feel her interest in you. I mean, and it's like, it's the power of what you're saying. It's really the power of, you borrow from Huey Lewis in the News. It's kind of the power of love, man. So.
Yeah. No, uh, it is a superpower when you feel like just people's presence, like when they're like that. I talk about it in the book. Like my friend Clinton, 19 years old. Remember, I met him at a summer camp that we were both working at, and he just graduated from Kansas and showed up, and I'd heard about him, but I was already so impressed. I was like, "Ugh, I'm sure he's a goober." And Clinton found me at a lunch table during training, sat down. It's like, "Hey, you're Drew," and I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I've been looking for you." And then for 45 minutes, he just began to he just asked questions. And not because they were like, "Hey, here's my thing that I do. I ask these 10 questions." It was just like, he just was so interested in my life. And I remember leaving and I'm sitting with another group of guys and I said, "Hey, Clinton may be the coolest guy that I've ever met in my life." He became a rock star within 45 minutes. And I was like blown away, couldn't stop thinking about it. And I had some of the counselors there's like, "Wait, like, how's he so cool? Like, what makes him so cool?" And I stopped and I was like, I couldn't tell them a thing about Clinton. I was like, he didn't tell me anything about, I was like, I don't, for 45 minutes, he just gave me the microphone and then just would ask these thoughtful, he would laugh, he would smile, and I remember going, I've, I mean, this sounds so like such an exaggeration, but I mean it. I don't know if I had ever felt so loved by another man. And I was like, I didn't know that men were allowed to love other men. Like, we talk about football and fish and fist bump. And, grew up in rural East Texas. And I was like at 19 going,
Well, it's cool because that's very similar to what I shared about my story about my mentor. The same power. Well, tell us about your book. Because I think if you want to prove you're curious, you got to buy Drew's book.
yeah.
So if you don't buy it, you're just like, you didn't even hear the podcast. Like, I'm not even curious enough to know what's in it. So tell us about your book.
Yeah. So it's called The Magic of Curiosity, and it's all about unlocking, just the secrets to personal growth. And so whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual, relational connections, and creativity. And so I make a case that curiosity is the key ingredient to our growth, and getting curious about like where we are, where we're going, that like what we've been talking about on the podcast, the relational piece. Even just as a side note, Brad, you can look on social media right now and just like dive into the comments on anything. It doesn't have to be political or whatever, but what you'll notice very quickly is people are not curious. It's just opinion after opinion, and no one's listening. And gosh, you even think about just the political state that we're in. Like, it's just either you're right, like no one is listening to anybody. And so that relational stuff, and that curiosity is connected to creativity and innovation. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of curiosity, and coming from it as a magician who spent the last 20 years, in each crowd trying to spark and inspire curiosity. And then I think also as a pastor, I didn't realize that the way I taught was I wanted people to become more curious about the scripture, and more specifically the God of the scripture, so that when they stepped, away from that moment, that they were inspired to just dig deeper and to know him more intimately. So big fan of curiosity. And I wrote a book about it.
Well, you need to tell the title again so everybody catches the title.
It's called The Magic of Curiosity.
Okay, well, so get that book, and basically you're just teaching people, hey, love better, learn more, inspire creativity, be more effective, come alive for God's glory. I mean, I love your message. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, you said that so well. I may have to copy that.
Hey, it's yours, man. And what he's talking about as it relates to marriage is the more interested a spouse is in the other, the better marriage is.
Mm-hmm.
The more interested you are in what they do, their life, their hobbies, what they're going through on a daily basis, the deeper and more beautiful it is. So invest in your marriage by asking good questions. And if you can't find time for one another, that's a lack of curiosity. Because if you're really curious, you're going to find the time, because man, inquiring minds want to know, and so I just want to encourage you, spend time in your marriage, invest in your marriage. Thank you, Drew, for being part of the Grace Marriage Podcast. This is just for me personally, a very timely podcast for me personally. So, man, what a gift. God bless, Drew. Thanks for being part of the podcast.
I love you guys.
Thank you for joining us on the Grace Marriage Podcast. We really hope you're feeling inspired to take intentional steps to grow in your marriage.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Your support helps us spread the message of grace and reach even more couples.
And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. Your feedback means a lot to us and helps others discover the podcast.
To learn more about how you can grow in your marriage, visit us at gracemarriage.com. Keep building stronger, grace-filled marriages.
We'll see you next week on the Grace Marriage Podcast. Until then, keep growing in grace.